Hello, my name is Ho Jung Kim, and I applied for the COIL training program for fall 2022 semester in August. I had an opportunity to learn about the program through Rachel from the Center for Global Engagement. After being selected for the COIL program to be implemented in my advanced design studio for fourth year interior architecture in collaboration with Busan National University, PNU, both Professor Beck and I went through the introduction and exercises to be familiar with the program. We had a long conversation to make the program work despite the language and time differences. We're meeting every week to go over Team's project and provide feedback for the coursework. So this was the screenshot of our Zoom session and one of our first day to kind of introduce ourselves and talk about our cultural differences and the background. For class announcements, including assignment guidelines, we decided to use Microsoft Teams as the primary folder to drop off the weekly assignments. Unfortunately, Canvas was not available for the Partners University. Zoom was the primary meeting place that we held every Monday because of the time difference. UT students had to start later in the evening and the PNU students to start in the morning. So one of our project was to look at the different site conditions in South Korea, in Busan, and also San Diego in California. During the midterm and final, we used Mural to upload a board presentation. Mural is a great collaborative workspace that acts like a blank canvas where students can sketch and use it as a post-it. The platform helps students to brainstorm ideas, create templates, and finally, it was easy for guest reviewers and outside critics to review the work. So this was kind of the result of one of our boards that were translated into the booklet format. But it was we had to create a digital platform where students can actually upload their work so they can get consistent feedback. We also used YouTube for sharing screens in Zoom to share each other's sketches and provide references. Some of my students never had an experience using WhatsApp or Telegram, so they had to download the app for group communications. This was an example of our course syllabus that we shared in both PNU and here at UT. It outlined the different phases of our project from phase 1 of research to sketches, site development, drawings, models, deliverables, and towards the final review, and kind of capturing the overview geographical locations of our site conditions in both Busan and also in San Diego. So this actually gave a good introduction of the regional context overall. This was an example of the data and analysis that we conducted in each cities. And later on, we actually transformed this into a booklet. Each team consisted of 2 students from University of Tennessee, UT, and 2 students from PNU. And then at the end of the semester, we created a booklet titled Migrating Architecture on the Post-Industrial in Busan and San Diego. So a lot of the introductions and the information and the credits were imprinted into this format. This was one of our photos that for our final presentation. We actually stood up. We reserved the lecture hall to present our screen. On the other side, the other our UT students joined this conversation. And then as you can see in the small screen, there was a Zoom session where the outside critics from both in Busan, but also in some of the professionals from South Korea have joined this meeting altogether. So this is kind of our final day that we were giving the presentation. We had a little pizza and drinks to kind of create a more informal session. So I think one of the most challenging aspect was the time difference. Time changes for daylight saving could also be considered and then determine the time for synchronous meetings. instead of students from both university engage asynchronously for group projects and individual assignments. Another challenge was the language. It is also important to identify the language to use for collaboration and consider how fluently the students speak English for their chosen language. All the students at PNU are required to have a basic or intermediate skills of English for the college course. All the writings and listening were somewhere average to above average. Verbal communication was an issue, but not because of the language barrier, but in respect to culture. Korean culture tends to be more formal and respectful in a way that it is rude to speak up or creating errors when they speak. And this also created some barriers for students to engage and speak freely to the others. This also caused some confusion for UT students who were not used to this costume. I'm including one of the two activities, so we had to really emphasize this understanding of not just the language difference, but then cultural differences to ease the tension sometimes in between the teamwork. But I think overall it was a successful way to introduce in a very limited budget that students didn't have any financial burdens, but really get to know the others from outside of the country.